Understand. Hey, everybody, I'm Reverend Molly Basquette, as you know, lead minister of our church, First Church Berkeley, and this is the last of our Last Wishes workshops, helping people do the pragmatic and practical tasks of preparing for their own deaths in ways that will hopefully liberate us and bring peace to the people we love, and bring blessing upon the world in larger ways. This workshop is to talk about legacy giving, wills, trusts, bequests. There's a lot of ways to talk about it and to do it. And we're very blessed to have Reverend Annie DeBraber with us today from the national setting of the UCC to walk us through all the deets. And I just want to give a quick overview of what legacy giving means to me. You know, my husband and I are savers. We're also lifelong Christians and have learned a lot from Jesus about what it means to be a people for others, and particularly using our wealth to bless others. And we both grew up relatively poor, you know, single moms, struggling, and that definitely had an influence on us. We both became hard workers and savers as a result of that. And as we both hit 50 this summer, we're turning 50, find ourselves in a much more financially stable position and in a position to leave something to others when we pass, which requires us to, you know, make really considered decisions about what's most important to us. I think the natural thing, the thing a lot of people do, would be to leave it to our two children. But presuming that we live long enough to see them into, you know, healthy, stable, financially stable adulthood, they're not really going to need that money, the capital we've amassed. And wealth can also be disabling, especially if you come into it too young. So, you know, we'd like to leave them enough to do something, but not enough to do nothing. Although I'm not sure we even have that much to leave them, but certainly, you know, we own property in two very high expensive areas. If we can live off our pensions and investment income for the rest of our lives and not touch the principal, we'll have a sizable sum to leave. And I don't want to disable my children that way. I want to enable beautiful things to happen in the world. And by giving it to agencies, institutions, and communities I really care about. And I think this is part of what it means to have eternal life. I do wrestle with Jesus saying, don't store up your treasure where moths and thieves can destroy it. Sometimes I say to my husband, wouldn't it be better to give it all away right now? But he's very pragmatic and says, you know, it can do more good if we tithe now and then give the balance after our death. So, of course, I love our church and will remember our church in our will, because I believe so much in the work that we're doing, and because I want to keep enabling that even when my earthly life is over. So that's my rationale. Sure, lots of you will have things to add as we go through the conversation. I'm going to say a little prayer and then turn it over to Nick Kukulon, co-chair of Stewardship, Finance, and Administration. Let's pray. Holy One, we thank you for this moment and the wisdom that is in us and between us, and the wisdom that comes from you, and how to be good stewards of what you have given us and what the world has given us, and ask you to guide our conversation today, to give us wisdom and courage, to set an example for ourselves, each other, and for our wider community in terms of how generosity can free us and bring us great joy, and bring joy and stability and strength to others as your church keeps emerging and enduring. We pray in the strong name of Jesus. Amen.
There we go. Thanks everyone for sharing your Saturday morning when it's such a beautiful day out. Last year, Molly gave Amy, Stan, and I a charge to reinvigorate planned giving for our church community. The program today marks a big step in this accomplishment. And first, I want to recognize Carmel Knutson, who for years as a church volunteer devoted so much time to organizing our annual sustain giving and tracking that, as well as developing our plan giving and our legacy circle, which has been part of our church giving. With Carmel's retirement a few years ago, the focus on the plan giving part faded a bit from our attention. So the program today marks a big step towards bringing this plan giving and legacy giving back to the church's attention. And especially want to highlight that Amy has done a huge job on updating our website that provides a whole lot of information about plan giving and the legacy circle itself. So anyway, this program today is going to help give our church focus on this plan giving. Well, I was born in 1950, which makes me a member of the boomer generation post-World War II. My parents worked really hard and gave me all the school and college opportunities. I married, had children, and worked very hard for 40 years. And in just a few months, I'm retiring after many, all these years of hard work. And I get to start Social Security. Sometimes when I'm waking up or working in the garden or driving the car, these voices start coming to me. It's like, hey, boomer, what are you going to do with that 401k you had for 40 years? How about that company retirement plan? What about that house? You've had that house for 20 years and it's like doubled in value. Like, wow, what are you going to do? What about that life insurance policy? You don't really need that anymore for your family. What are you going to do with all those financial assets when you die? Well, guys, I'm just so confused. I love my church community, and I really want to make a contribution, but my head is just spinning. I read all this stuff about planning and all that, but I just don't know what to do. Well, you came to the right program today. Yeah, Andy DeBarber, he's just the coolest guy, and he knows so much about plan giving. So you came to the right place today. So Molly, turn it over to you. Can you introduce Andy to everybody?
I can. And before I do that, let's give Nick a round of applause. That may be the first time hand puppets have been used in a legacy giving workshop to great effect. So when Andy and I were talking last week, he asked me if I'd share a brief story of generosity in our congregation. And we have a really excellent one that happened just recently. And that's Mitzi McKenna, who many of you knew, who was a treasured member of our congregation for a very long time, very actively engaged. And yet I don't think she was ever moderator. She never was really sort of out front in a position of great responsibility, just sort of one of those quietly dedicated saints. And age and frailty and illness meant that she couldn't attend church for the last several, maybe many years of her life. I'm not exactly sure. And yet, in spite of her physical distance from our church, she remained really connected and committed. And we found out after she passed that she'd remembered us in her will. And a year later, the bequest came through and everything had been probated. She left us $174,000, which just, it's such a parable of, I don't think it's a widow's mite. It's more like the widow's, treasury of how, making that simple commitment early on can yield such great dividends beyond our death. I don't have a benchmark for any of us here today or anyone watching this in the future, but just to let that unexpected surprise gift, to let the blessing of it wash over us and make us feel great joy at what's possible. So Andy, I think I've already introduced you. I first met you at annual gathering, NCNC UCC, Northern California, Nevada Conference of the UCC annual gathering, I think maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, because we're coming up on it. You gave an amazing workshop on stewardship. It was really fun and engaging. So of course, you're the first person I thought of when I said, who can help us figure this out? And we're really glad you're with us today.
Thanks, Molly. I'm honored to be here, and I don't know how I'm going to top Nick's puppets, but we'll have some fun here as well as talk about the serious things around death and life and how we can be generous and impact the world and leave a legacy. For me, what animates this work, and I've been a generosity officer with the national setting for 3.5 years, is that Jesus also said, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And so for me, this work is about aligning our hearts and our treasures, our values and our visions for the world. Just a quick, let's see, I'm going to see if I can share screen and how this goes. Not yet. Molly's going to let me do that in a minute here. So we can give you an overview of where we're headed.
You should have that power now.
All right, there it is. Yes. All right. So if I go to right here. Come on. There we go. Can you all see that all right? All right. So we've just done the introductions. Then we'll talk a little bit about what planned giving is and why would we consider a planned gift. Look at some of the planned giving vehicles or instruments that we can use to do that. Nick mentioned some of those in his discussion with his puppets. It was funny when I was looking at the screens after the puppets, somebody has something in their hands that's alive, but at first I thought it was a puppet. I think it's a cat. What are the benefits to you, to your loved ones, to your church? The top 10 reasons to tell the church that it's in your will. Some people wonder, well, I've put the church in my will, but why do I need to tell them? I don't need credit for it, or I don't need my name in lights, but there are good reasons to do that. Take a little look at the United Church of Christ and our relationship and partnership with United Church funds. Where does the money go at First Church Berkeley? We'll turn it back over to Nick and Amy for that, as well as for the Legacy Circle there and the website page. And then hope to have a little time for questions and answer afterward. Is there anything that we're not covering there that somebody wants to be sure we try to address already that you're aware of? Also, feel free to use the chat section as well, or just comment. I like to have some interaction if you have a question. Or if someone just peeks in the door, they can wave and say hi too. I might have that behind me. I want to tell a couple stories to get started as well. The first one is from the church that I'm a member of now here in Grand Rapids, Michigan, which is where I live. I've been working out of home for 3.5 years, the 3.5 years I've been with the UCC. And I'm a member of Park Congregational UCC here. And a number of years ago, I don't know, 20 or 30 years ago, there was a member of the church who was the owner of a grocery store chain here in West Michigan. And he was very actively involved in the church, always on the council or on different groups, teaching classes, golfing with the minister, just very, very active in the church. And when he suddenly passed away, he left literally millions of dollars to our local college, to one of our local colleges, to our hospital, and to a number of other organizations that were very near and dear to his heart. But he left nothing to the church. And so the pastor at the time, after plenty of time had passed and it was appropriate, asked his widow, why didn't he leave anything to the church? And she said, because you never asked. Because you never asked. So I commend Nick and Amy and you all for doing this and to asking people to consider a legacy gift that can make such a difference in the world. The other story is the church I pastored for 9 years in Douglas, Michigan. And there was a woman who came part-time and also had a place in Chicago. And when she passed away, she left $5,000 to Planned Parenthood of Chicago and $5,000 to Douglas Congregational United Church of Christ. This was in 1950 approximately. And Douglas United Church of Christ was a small church. I mean, if you worked hard, you could pack 100 people in there. And in the 1980s, early 90s, the church dwindled down to less than a dozen people. But this gift that had been left had been put in a trust. I'm guessing it was maybe a charitable remainder trust or something like that. So they were getting little dividend payments off from it a couple times a year, but they knew it was there and that it was growing. So you can imagine $5,000 put away in an investment handled very well and put into things like General Motors and IBM and things like that from 1950 to 2000. It was held in a trust for 50 years before the church could access it. When the church accessed it it was 1999 or 2000, it was $750,000. We always hear those stories of compounding interest. It really happened. And I'm convinced that it kept the doors of the church open during those times when it got so lean and they could have just said, nope, we're done. We're going to close the doors. And now it is an incredibly thriving church. One of our top givers in our conference, in the Michigan conference, to the UCC, to OCWM. We were the top giving small church. We won the Small Church Award for the God Is So Speaking campaign, for those of you who won or who remember that. So, even leaving something that may seem small can over time grow and make a huge, huge impact. So think about that. One of the questions people ask is, do I have anything to give? And Molly, appreciated you sharing your story with us about your children, and talk about your children too. A lot of folks will think about their giving or their legacy and what they're leaving behind in their trust, in their will, their bequest, whatever instrument they use, about maybe they're going to leave, let's say they have two children, leave, a third to one child, a third to another child, and a third almost treating their church or a nonprofit or a group of nonprofits as a third child, or split it up in some way like that. So it's, everybody thinks about it differently, about how and what we believe our children need and we want to leave to future generations. So do I have anything to give? Out there, especially, I know property values have skyrocketed over the last several years. So oftentimes people can be cash poor, but have a lot of property that they might leave. So these are just national averages of median net worth. And I'm gonna have to move move the camera here so I can see what I'm looking at. Median net worth and mean net worth. So mean is the average, right? And for those of us who remember these things, and median is the middle. So if we look at the left-hand column, median net worth, and see how that changes over time, you can see, folks who are 55 to 64 have $187,000. If you look at the 50th person out of 100, if you look at the average, it's 1.17 million, because our society in particular over the last 30 years, the wealth gap has just increased so much. But just to think about, what is it? What property do we have to leave? What assets? What investments and retirement accounts? All those things that Nick mentioned when you were having conversation. Your puppets have names, Nick?
They're the spirits.
The spirits, right. Your conversations with
talking the spirits.
Yeah. And then also thinking about, as Molly was talking about, what kind of lifestyle do I want to live now? And what kind of lifestyle do I want to live into the future? And who do we talk to about that? Who are our advisors around that? How do we think about it? Do we think about living more simply so that we can leave an impact in the world? So what is most important to you? What do you want to see in the world? What kind of impact? Maybe it's your church at First Congregational Church of Berkeley there. Maybe there's some justice issues that are really important to you. Maybe it's the environment, saving the redwoods out there. I put this picture in the center because family is so important to a lot of folks. And because my son is just a Star Wars nut, so he's really important to me. But you can see just the family value there. Also the value of stories and the story in which we place ourselves. So take some time as you're thinking about what you want to do to think about what you value. When we consider our children or our grandchildren, what are the principles or values that we would like to communicate to them by our gifts when we leave a gift at the end of our life? How does our giving represent what's important to us and to our family? What institutions have been most important to us in our lives, and how has the church been particularly impactful in our life and in our community? You might also think about what gifts you've made that have given particular satisfaction to you now in your life. That maybe those are the organizations you want to think about putting in your planned giving. And how will your estate giving bear witness to God's generosity as well? So those are just some of the things that can help us think about where we want to put our gifts when we leave this world. And sometimes people will leave designated amounts. You know, maybe I'm leaving $50,000 to First Congregational of Berkeley, and $30,000 to Habitat for Humanity, and $10,000 to the Land Conservancy. Or other times people will put a percentage on it and say, I'm leaving this percentage of my assets to different institutions. So the ways to do that, then we'll look at some of those vehicles for giving. There we go. The primary planned giving vehicles, although, you know, maybe contributing the vehicles in the picture would be a nice asset. The first one, of course, are wills or bequests. You know, that's the basic form of putting a will together that names how you want your life to be handled at your passing, at our passing, at our death. 70 to 80% of gifts come that way. It is the simplest form, and it is the easiest to do. So again, like I just said, naming a percentage or naming an amount of what is in your estate that will go to different places. Individual retirement accounts, you can name the church or other nonprofits as the beneficiary of your account, or that they can receive that account as a gift at your passing. And just as a side note, I'm sure most of you are aware of it, but if you have an individual retirement account and you have a required minimum distribution, you can give that directly to your church or nonprofit without paying taxes on it. It has to go directly to them. It can't come to you and then to them. But that's a way that allows you to give more. A footnote that I don't want to tell you is that there's no required minimum distribution this year because of the CARES Act and the coronavirus. But you can still give, even though it's not required out of your IRA. Life insurance, of course, Nick mentioned that. You can name the church as a beneficiary or gift the policy to the church. And then life income gifts. So things that will provide income to you during your lifetime and then also be left to the church at the end. So one example is a charitable gift annuity, where you would, and I'll give some more specific examples of this soon, but it's a place that you'll put an amount of money, a lump sum, and that you will be paid an annual amount, an annual revenue off from that every year until you pass. And then what remains in that account will go to the charity that you named. One of the reasons to consider a charitable gift annuity is that you can have this guaranteed income and also make a gift. It's a way to provide for a loved one. You can name a loved one as the beneficiary of that revenue each year. There are favorable tax advantages to it. And depending on where you put it, you can put it somewhere that's consistent with your values. Another one of those kind of gifts is a charitable remainder trust. It works a little bit, it's almost the opposite of that. And we can look at that a little closer later if you want, but let me just read that. It's an instrument to which a donor places assets and which makes a variable lifetime annual payments equal to a percentage of the fair market value of those assets. And so that's determined annually. And then at the end, the nonprofit, charity, or church receives that asset. And then if you use United Church funds, and this is all on your website, if you use United Church funds, there's a $10,000 minimum for a charitable gift annuity and a $50,000 minimum for a charitable remainder trust. So those are getting into the details, and many of you have financial advisors that you can work with and ask about these things, and I encourage you to do that, or also to call United Church Funds, and we'll get you a brochure on that. But more importantly is why? Like, what are the benefits to you of leaving a planned gift? One is just clarity and peace of mind. So you know what's going to happen with your assets when you die. Another is to express your values, express your mission in the world, and to join the mission of the organizations that you leave money to. Another one is the joy of giving while you're still alive. This is the one that I always love to emphasize. You know, if I have an opportunity to give something now, or to leave an asset now that I can tell the church or I can tell the nonprofit and enjoy the benefits that come with giving while I'm still alive. As mentioned earlier, some of the instruments allow us to provide for a partner or a family member or others. And most of these instruments also allow us to reduce tax consequences. So any gift to a nonprofit or charity out of your estate is going to reduce the state taxes that need to be paid. And to avoid probate court, when the court is going to decide where your money goes instead of you. Like Molly, I'm also turning 50 this year, and I have to do all this myself. So in addition to all of those things, which will be benefits to your loved ones, right? They'll learn what you value. They'll know that you have peace of mind about it, and it'll help them have peace of mind about it. One of the other benefits to doing planned giving now is that when you die, this won't happen. We've heard so many stories of families fighting over who's going to get what, where if we can name all that early on, then, you know, they don't need to fight over it at the dinner table after you've passed, between your passing and the funeral. Or for those of you whose animals are fighting over what you have left as well. So not as funny as Nick's spirits, but, you know, trying to inject a little gallows humor here. But it is really a gift to your family to name that, to share your values, and so that they don't have to try and figure that out after you've passed. So what about the benefits of planned giving to your church? One of the things that you can do with your planned gift is make your current annual giving perpetual. So if I'm giving $5,000 a year to the church, how much money do I need to set aside for the church to continue to have that gift once I've passed on? Especially as we talked a little earlier with the growing wealth divide in our country. Many of our younger people are not going to be able to have as high an annual giving to their church as some, not all, but some of our older folks do now. So it can be really helpful to think about it that way. You'll enable greater mission impact of your church. You love your church. You love what the church does. I've been looking through your Facebook pictures. Oh my gosh, you are all so active and wonderful, and the work you're doing around helping the community there. So enabling greater mission impact in what is already happening and what will continue to happen. You can help the church provide and plan for the future. So the endowment is there to be used for needs that will come up in the future, and to know that it's there, and for the church to know that your gift is coming, and to think about how might we be able to use that most faithfully for mission. And then to meet immediate needs, if you designate it that way. I'll leave this more to Amy and Nick later, most of the gifts that come in as planned gifts to churches go into an endowment. That then there's an interest that's drawn off of that to be used as designated. So whether it's operating funds or special missions or capital campaigns or capital needs. But you can, some people don't like to see their money go in an endowment. They want to see it spent right away. So you can designate that the money that you leave will go to new initiatives or innovations or mission. There is a gift receipt policy, I believe, we have in place, right, Nick and Amy? Give me a thumbs up if we have a gift receipt policy in place. So well, you know what? Let's go to that. We'll get to that in just a minute. Benefits of planned giving to charities of choice. I was an executive director of a ministry that walked alongside homeless people for 5 years. You can give to organizations and nonprofits that you give to now. I have to tell you, it was always exciting to receive that notification. I mean, it was sad because somebody had passed away, but it was exciting to get a copy of the will and say, oh, look, Heartside Ministry is going to get a gift of, sometimes it would say $10,000, sometimes it would say a percentage. So we're like, I don't know what kind of gift we're going to get. And sometimes you got to wait a year to get it by the time it all sorts out. But there was always a need, let me tell you that. I'd invite you to consider the Northern California Nevada Conference of the UCC for a gift to support all the churches of the conference out there. And consider, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask you to consider leaving a gift to the national setting of the United Church of Christ as we work to build a just world for all. If you let the places that you're going to give, the places that you're going to leave a gift, if you let them know before you die, that's really appreciated, in part because then they can honor your intent with the gift. They can honor your passions for that work, especially if it's an organization that does a number of things. Of course, all of us would rather have undesignated gifts to use however we want. So I encourage you to do that first. But if you want it to go towards a specific part of what that mission or organization or church does, that's one thing to consider as well. All right, the part that I had the most fun with. The top 10 reasons to let the church know it's in your will. And this is the gift acceptance policy is number 10. That is, will the gift be acceptable? I want to leave my old organ to the church. Guess what? They're not going to take it. And so there are a number of things that you might think about leaving, but maybe the church isn't able to take that gift for whatever reason. So keep that in mind. Another reason is to encourage and to model and inspire others to consider in the church giving. You can help grow the givers in your church by leaving a gift now and joining the legacy circle. Okay, the story I told you about Douglas UCC. So the church will stay alive. Like, you want the church to continue into the future beyond you and to do the amazing work that it's doing. You want to keep the church alive. One of the things that happens by making a planned gift to your church is that you become even more invested than you are now, which may lead you to investing your time, like is happening here. Apparently, you know these people. I saw people clapping. Just stay involved and invested with your time and with your money and with your energy these days. Okay, now the question is, will the church use the money for the purpose you want it to be used? So if you're going to give a gift to First Congregational Church of Berkeley and say, we want to build a church on a ship, I'm just not sure they're going to use it for that purpose, or be able to accept a gift like that. I don't know. I'm always not sure. Maybe that's something you want to look at. But there are things that you might want to say, we're going to give it for this. Or, a classic one is that we want to give it to the church for flowers to have in worship. And then eventually the church isn't using flowers anymore, or they've got a fund of $1 million to pay for flowers. It's like, we could really use that money for some other things. Reason number 5 is to help the church plan. So the church can know what's coming ahead. they can look at in the future and see, okay, here are the number of planned gifts that are coming to us, and that will help us plan into the future. Not necessarily our operational budget, but our budget around our endowment and the work that it does. Number 4, you get to get thanked for it while you're alive. So, let the church know so they can thank you. One of the ways that can happen is maybe you consider having an annual luncheon or brunch or dinner for people who have left a planned gift. And on a very practical side for that is that every place else that people have left a planned gift and have told them they've left a planned gift are thanking them and making sure that that gift is there still. Because if it's in your will, you can change it at any time. So we want to continue to affirm that this is a good decision, and to also let you know the work that it's going to go to accomplish in the world. Number 3 is to get your name in lights. So this is literally a donor memorial in China, and those are names written on lanterns there. So it's not what I was thinking of when I thought name in lights, but there are all kinds of varieties of ways to get your names in lights. And this one, because your pastor will jump up and down with joy and your leaders will say a toast to you. They didn't know that was coming either. Yeah, but it's, let us enjoy that joy with you. Let us celebrate that joy with you of giving. And first of all, to turn First Church Berkeley's vision into reality. We are a community that values radical inclusion and artful worship, where belonging is more important than belief. Joy is a guiding principle. We're a restorative sanctuary for the suffering and weary, a space for creative and contemplative ritual, and a hub for transformative moral action on the justice issues of our day. So the top 10 reasons to let the church know it's in your will. After reading that, I want to give to First Church Berkeley now. Let's see. I think I see a bunch of things going on in the chat. Anything we need? Or maybe not. No, that's more. Okay. Well, Molly, you're monitoring that. You'll let me know if there's anything there. I'm going to get out of sharing here and turn it over to Nick to talk about where does the money go when it comes to First Congregational Church of Berkeley.
There we go. So I think everyone, church community knows we have an endowment, and you look at the annual report, the general endowment right now is somewhere around $2.7 million, fluctuating a little bit with this ups and downs of the stock market. But people like Bob Hellison are closely watching this. It's all invested with the United Church funds in a socially responsible manner. So we've had this relationship with the United Church funds for quite a long time, and they do a good job, especially with the socially responsible investing. So the church takes about a 5% draw off of the endowment each year, which provides important contribution to both operations for the church campus and for church programs. Of the general endowment, about 50% of it is like open endowment, and the other portion of it is kind of has been directed by the donors to specific areas. So there's been donations which have been made towards relationships with the university community and youth ministry, as well as to the music program. So there are some contributions made to endowment that have been more specifically designated. So that's just a general recap of the endowment, and if anybody else has questions about it, you can always ask any of us for further information. Let's see, then we wanted to do what next?
I think I'm up next.
Okay.
Website, or are we going to you, Andy, for your?
As long as we're there, it makes sense to just,
Or do you want to do your okay.
And then I'll do the next part.
You're okay with me moving ahead? Do you want to do that? Okay. So thanks everyone. Molly did a great, they had an article this week, and it was just wonderful because it lifted up the names of the folks who are currently members of the Legacy Circle. That's what we call our planned giving membership group in church, and talked about Mitzi's gift and lasting gift. So just gratitude to everyone who is part of that, and those are the people we know about. There may be others we don't know. So much gratitude for that. And I'm going to give you a tour. This is fun on the screen sharing abilities of Zoom of our website, and maybe you've had a chance to look at that. I will, let's see, I host disabled participant screen sharing, but I think I can get it, Molly, if you just change that. Yeah.
I just made you a co-host, so you should be able to do it now.
Thank you. Thanks. One thing I wanted to note is there on our website, we do have a link. Can you see that? I'm going to close that. We have a link to the annual report, and the annual report does have a very comprehensive page on the endowment, the specific donor designated funds and the general endowment amount. So check that out. This is the give section of our website, and we have quite a bit of information here. I'm going to scroll through it on the kind of annual giving, our sustaining giving, ongoing giving to the operating budget. So we have materials there that you can check out on your own time. This is where you can go to do your online, you can just note your online giving amount and complete information that goes right to Kit Dunbar, our business manager, to indicate what you're planning to give towards our operating budget on a regular basis. Skipping down to our, and we also have information here and on stock giving, and there's some instructions you can forward on to your financial advisor. So that's all here as well. So I'm going to focus on our Legacy Circle, and we have a very hopefully comprehensive FAQ that will talk again about these various vehicles that Andy was talking about, the charitable gift annuities and life income, what these all are. I'm going to kind of move down through here, but there are a bunch of questions, and so I encourage you to take a look at this. We have a form on here that is a fillable form that you can complete, and we encourage you to complete if you've left the church in your bequest or otherwise. And for this, we do ask that you complete it and then send it to the church. It has information about what you are, the type of gift that you're leaving. And you can indicate, it's not absolutely necessary. You can name the plan, or you could just sort of check these boxes and not leave information, but it's kind of the degree of detail that you would choose to, would wish to leave for the church business manager. This information goes to our senior minister and our business manager. Our treasurer would know it, and our plan giving, the chairs of the plan giving, which is, at this point it's Nick and me. And then we have on the second page of the form, there's going to this, the type of gift, whether it's restricted or unrestricted. And again, you can go into the annual report to see the kind of names of the different types of donor restricted funds. There's optional information about the gift if you'd like to leave the value of the approximate value as of today's date, and then whether you want to have your name listed publicly or not, and you can remain anonymous, and we have that even currently on our Legacy Circle membership. Name of executor, and then we ask that you sign and date it, and then send this to, we're going to change this on the form, update it to our address on Durant, 2330 Durant. But that this form then gets securely saved at the church offices and scanned and put into their internal closed network. So it's safe and sound information. And I liked Andy's idea about sort of having regular updates to this information. So kind of more frequent, I don't know, maybe annual, where we're checking back with the members of our Legacy Circle to just see if that's still, if they're still wishing to be in the church's Legacy Circle. So that's the form. And there is a link in this FAQ to, if I can scroll down, to the UCC materials and the United Church Funds materials that Andy was mentioning. There's a lot more information on their website about the life income gifts, and there's a brochure available. It's a wonderful thing. I think I can just link to it here. So there's information in this about kind of the minimum amounts for the different types of planned income gifts. So, and I think we're going to have some copies of this available, or be able to just, send this out to everyone who's an attendee today. We can send it out as a PDF. So we have that. What else is there? Let's see. Yeah, just want to give some examples on that example of, if you are providing $2,000 a year in your sustaining gift, like how you would get that through a gift, the amount of the gift that would result in that. There's an example here under the how much should I consider giving. And then information about restrictions on the types of gifts I can make. We have a link to our enabling resolution from the endowment committee. Essentially we are, restricted gifts, and I think Mo and Nick could speak more to this. Restrictive gifts are, they are fine, but they, if they're too difficult to administer, I think that would be in violation of this endowment committee enabling resolution. We want to, for restricted gifts, be able to use those as long as the need exists. And if it's not, the policy is that they'll just be directed, if the need is not there, to the general endowment. So I think we'd like to encourage gifts made without designation, so that in future years, the people who are on endowment and the church leadership can look at what the current needs are at that time for the gifts. So, and then Nick spoke to, it is our endowment committee, and we also have an investment committee. And then, so here's the steps for making a legacy gift. Talk with your advisors and your family about what you would like to be doing. And then you can contact one of the ministers or Kit Dunbar to talk about what you're considering. This is a helpful step before doing your legacy form, just to make sure what you're thinking about will sort of mesh up with what works for the church. And then once you've executed your legacy gift, you would then complete the form and send it. You can email it or send it to Kit Dunbar. And then we will welcome you as a member of the Legacy Circle, and we'll talk about how we're going to celebrate when we're all together physically again. We can have a luncheon or a dinner or something fun. So we want to be able to do that and celebrate you being part of the Legacy Circle. So that's the website. I hope you check it out. And thanks to Ben and Molly for helping pull this all together.
Yeah, it's really well done. Nice on that. I just want to go a little further in that brochure. You were almost there. The brochure has this chart in it that just helps you to think about if I wanted to leave a charitable gift annuity. I'm age 65, 70, 75, $10,000, the minimum amount with United Church Funds. So United Church Funds is a financial ministry affiliated with the United Church of Christ. And I believe, right, you can affirm this, Nick or Ann, I believe your investments are with United Church Funds. And that's mostly what people know United Church Funds for, is churches have their investments there, and as well as other bodies of the United Church of Christ, but individuals can as well. So say I left a $10,000 gift at age 65, then it's according to your age, how much you're gonna get, what percentage you're gonna get paid back. So at age 65, I'd get a 5.1% payment on that every year. And $2,798 of it would be tax deductible. So if we go over and look here, this is if I'm 70 years old, I leave a $10,000 gift, 5.1%, and those percentages are set by a national financial body that you're not required to go by them, but most financial investment firms do. You'll get a charitable deduction of $3,797.80. The first year, since you're paying in May, in this case, for this example, you'll have 2 payments out. So it breaks it down here because they pay it out quarterly, and you can choose how it's paid out, quarterly or annually. So for the first year, it shows here the payments you'll get. And then from 2021 to 2035, your payment, $390 of it will be tax-free, and $120 of it will be taxed of that $510 total. And then that changes a little bit the older you get. The other example I wanted to show, because one of the main reasons to leave, that some people leave a gift in the way they do or the form they do, is to avoid capital gains tax. So if you have investments, if you have stocks, if you have property, there's going to be a capital gains tax on that if it's left as an inheritance in some cases. But if you do leave it to a nonprofit or your church, then there won't be any capital gains tax on that. So this is a case of a couple, age 76 and 73, leaving a $10,000 gift in a charitable gift annuity. Cost basis is $5,500. So they don't have to pay taxes on that $4,500 difference. Get a 5% payment, and then just similar to what we looked at before, charitable deduction of $3,426 and $500 a year. So and then at the end of the lifetime, whatever is left in that account goes to the charity that's named, and 1 or 2 individuals can be named to receive that annual payment over time. So they think in this case, the couple could list one, each of them could be getting half of that payment over time, and then the other would get the whole payment when one passed until the second person died. And then the remainder would be left to the charity. Now, if you come to a point in your life, you've made a gift like this, and you no longer need or want that $500 a year, you can just gift whatever's left to the charity at any time. You can just say, okay, I don't need that annual payment. I just want to give what's left to the church now. And then, yeah, so we've looked at all that. So I think we're good.
Andy, I mean, you talked about the difference between charitable gift annuity and charitable remainder trust. Do we also have examples of the charitable remainder trust, how that compares?
I don't, no. So maybe we can get one of those from Millie to send out as a follow-up. Millie Hernandez at United Church Funds handles giving from individuals, and she's great. In fact, and if you go to United, oh boy. You go to United Church Funds, it, but oh, there, I just stopped sharing. Sorry about that. If you go to United Church Funds, though, they have a gift calculator, and you can plug in there what, here's their gift calculator. Personalize your gift, and it'll show you what that'll do. I am not as familiar with the charitable remainder trust there, Nick, so I wouldn't want to speak out of turn on that at the moment. But I'm sure we can get an example from Millie. And again, also like Amy said, please consult your financial advisors or United Church Funds. Happy to talk to you about the details of all those gifts as well. Somebody asked about the difference between a will and a bequest. Just a bequest is the gift that comes out of your will, so, or gifts. And are there other questions, stories, concerns, comments?
Hi, Carmel. I want to say hi, Carmel.
Yay, Carmel's here.
So, yeah.
Carmel just had surgery earlier this week, but she's an Energizer bunny, so here she is. Paul has a question on terminology. Plan giving and legacy giving sometimes are used interchangeably.
I think in our church we're calling it legacy. We've called it the legacy giving circle or the legacy circle, but it's essentially planned giving is the more generic name used sort of beyond our own church and just what we're talking about today. But we call it legacy giving in our church. It's the legacy
more of a ring. Has more of a ring to it.
So I think, we have some good materials that we can share. Andy, if you have like some of those examples, I was interested if we can get those and forward on, because it was a lot to absorb those.
Yeah, right.
And Andy sent me a couple of weeks ago a copy of the estate planning guide.
That's what I was, yeah.
I admit my brain just goes really fuzzy with this stuff. I don't love doing it. It's a chore. And it was really beautifully designed and laid out so that just to walk me through the steps. So I look forward to sitting down with that. Oh, you're muted.
I'll just
Andy's
say
muted.
Maybe a bit of a tangent, but we're talking about sort of doing our wills, age 50, like got to, get these things together. We got ours together a few years back, and it was more around because we have 2 children who are grown or college age now, but it was sort of, for many years we avoided it because the question, I wasn't even thinking about this part of it, like the giving part of it. It was thinking about the other big question was like, who will we want to take care of our children if something terrible happened to us, younger. And so that was the avoidance. It wasn't so much around these questions of leaving, where to leave money and, whatever that, that there's a lot involved in this, that's kind of dry in some ways, like figuring out, what's the vehicle, but that question of the children, and maybe you talked about it more in some of your other workshops, Molly, but that who to take care of the children. I know that's not our topic today, but that was primarily why we didn't do it for so many years, and we finally got it together.
It is a very emotional thing to have to face, the idea of our children going on without us, and who can we trust to care for them and raise them the way we would want them raised. I think one thing that's really helped me, this actually came up in the first workshop on advanced healthcare planning, advanced healthcare directives, is, there's this idea that you have to do this, fill out these forms once and for all, but also partly because there's so much work and, it's so arduous. But the advanced healthcare directive, they suggest you do it when one of the 5 Ds happens. And I'm not going to remember them all right now, but another death, a significant death, a divorce, every decade. So that was a big one. It's like, you know, the decisions you'll make around what to do with your assets when you're 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 are going to change. So I actually did my will 10 years ago because I had cancer. It seemed like an important thing to do. Peter just did his a month ago because coronavirus. Our kids are 14 and 18. Our will right now is going to look different than it will in 10 years. So when we're turning 60, we'll revisit that, or maybe a little bit sooner, and leave, you know, less to the kids, more to charities and organizations we care about. So this is not a once and for all. And the more we, you know, if we can approach it that way, not as this binary, like I haven't done it, task avoidance, I've done it, it's all done forever. That just can probably give us more freedom to do it, to enter the work.
Yeah, indeed. I'll show you that estate planning guide is really helpful, and we'll get you copies of that. This is the piece that Molly is talking about. And it's more well-rounded than just our finances. It helps us think about a number of things, and that to have those on record somewhere. You know, my parents were both born in 1947, and I'm trying to tell them, somebody needs to know where all this information is and what your passwords are. I mean, somebody, I don't care if it's me or not, but somebody needs to know all this. So I'm trying to get them to do that. You know, what are your nearest relatives, important documents, where are they? Who knows that? An inventory of your estate, so that will help you think about what I might have to give. But again, just so somebody knows and who to contact. So the insurance stuff we talked about, life income arrangements, distribution we've talked about, naming an executor, care of your children, professional advisors. Who should we call? Find out these things. What are your funeral instructions? Does somebody have that? Does the church have that on file? Do you have that somewhere? You know, what songs you might, what hymns or songs you might like, flowers, people speaking, all that, and then different charitable interests are listed there. So it's a really helpful document, even just to start thinking about it in a holistic kind of way. Something that sometimes we don't want to think about, but can bring us in an almost contradictory kind of way as a peace of mind, and also our families.
Really well said.
Where we become friends with our fears.
Yeah, beautifully said.
So Andy, that brochure you just showed us is downloadable from?
It is. Yep, I can
website?
send you an email, or we can order some from and have them sent to you from United Church Funds.
Or maybe we could put a link to it in our website.
Yeah, great idea. And you could drop a link in the chat right now, Andy, if you don't mind.
I can do that.
In the meantime, it looks like B. Maroney has been raptured, Jim. I hope she did her will. I didn't mean to tease you, B.
I bet something's on the stove that's cooking that's really
Probably
good.
Is. Jim's eating
she
really
was in
well.
the kitchen, of course.
Of course. Anyone else have questions for Andy or Nick or?
Can you read
This link.
I was raising her hand there.
Oh, hey, Carmel.
Maybe you've covered it. I apologize.
Carmel, you're
For not having the right code. Update it. Maybe that was mentioned.
Can you repeat that, Carmel? You were garbled, but now I think you're ungarbled.
Uh-oh. Okay.
You're good now. Try now.
I was good reason to double check your trust or will, whichever you have, probably both, is the laws change, And so, you know, in terms of what you give, it maybe, I mean, at this point you can give 5 million or something like that in California. But earlier, you know, it was a lot less than that you could give, and you need to make sure you are updating it so that it matches. The other thing I wanted to say is that sometimes people feel, well, I want to give all my money to my kids. But sometimes you can actually end up giving more to your kids by having given to the church first.
Because of tax
Do
liability?
you understand what I'm saying?
Because of tax liability?
Right.
Yeah, like estate tax or wealth tax.
So that's all. That's also something to consider.
Hey, Carmel, thanks again for all you've done in the past to get so
Yeah.
much going with all the giving at church. You've been amazing. Thank you.
Most folks know, but Carmel for many, many, many years was we called her the membership secretary, but really she was like the stewardship powerhouse and was in, you know, deep relationship with people and conversation about money and giving in a really pastoral, deeply spiritual, theological way. And we're so blessed by your years of service and still helping. We still tap her for lots of stuff. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Illumination? There's no dumb questions.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the all the work that went into this and effective presentation. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
it's been a
you.
pleasure.
Thanks everybody for taking time out of another beautiful Northern California day to do this work. And the spirits are saying goodbye.
I told you
blessings on
Andy
their
was
way.
going to be really cool, right?
Yeah,
I
you were
told you.
right.
Yay.
Spirit.
Thank you, Andy. This was really wonderful that you
It's a pleasure. Thanks for asking.
your day, and
Good
thanks
to meet
the
you all.
National UCC.
Come and visit us again in person when all this nonsense is over.
Indeed. Indeed. As Molly knows, I was supposed to be there a month from now, but that's not one of these days.
His best friend is a UCC pastor and lives out here and is lurking on our call. Jason, and Jason's mom is Betty Spammer, who goes to our church. So yay. Yeah. Blessings on everyone. God be with you all. And I'll see you soon. We'll see you.
All right. Adios. Thanks, Andy, Molly.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye all.